So I did it. I think I did anyway. I think I fixed the technical glitch, and it's a real simple problem. It's storage space. You know, we live, we learn, and we keep rolling forward. What's for lunch today, y'all? I ate a breakfast bowl. What are you having? I ate a breakfast bowl so that I could get back to work on all of this fall smalls goodness, because there's some really cute project pieces to do, and you can do any of these with thrift finds. You can do any of these with things that you have laying around the house. This right here is a cutie little tin. Of course, it was perfect for Christmas, but Halloween comes first. My sister will point out to me quite frequently. Halloween comes first, people, so let's get this done. This is salt washed with Sunset. This is foam. This is a foam Dollar Tree pumpkin. Hey, Lynette, how are you? Paula, hey, thanks for coming back. So this is just a foam pumpkin from the Dollar Tree, but I did not like the neon orange color. I still am not real crazy about this. I did paint it Sunset. It toned it down, but I want to do a little bit more with this. We did a couple of jars. This is salt wash watered down. After it has dried, of course, I used the Miracle Sponge on this. This is salt wash that wasn't watered down. You can see a pretty distinct difference in color right there. So the watered down version is still nice and orangey strong, but it's not quite as strong as the other. This is our little plastic container ornament. Looks like a paint jar. We've got the lid for it done as well. Not completely. This whole time, y'all, this whole time I've been trying to fix storage space. This is also, this was the piece we started with. This is also a foam pumpkin. I'll put it in view of both cameras. There's that neon orange, and there's our green. So we're going to continue to work with these products. We want to make sure everything gets done today. And oh, don't forget this one, because I'm really loving how this looks. Hear it? Salt wash. I love the way it dries. This is almost a sea glass finish, almost, but not quite, just in Sunset and not in sea glass. Let's get these finished. Oh, you're having chicken bog for lunch. Cool. This is our lid for our large glass jar, and this is our lid for our small. Yes, I used Tostitos and the on the border or south of the border or something on the border salsa, because my kid's crazy about these two together. So I also have rustic clay, and I have copper, because I feel like these colors are going to be amazing for your fall small projects. So I'm gonna scoot you back around here so you can see real well. I think I've got the legs pointing in the wrong way, but we'll work forward with it. And we'll get our salt wash back out, because now I'm ready to do a different color. I did not wash my bucket out. I didn't think it was gonna take me this long, but it'll be okay, because guess what? A little bit of water, and shake your paint every time you get ready to start again. And let's get some paint in here. Just some rustic clay in some salt wash. Close that up and move it out of the way. And then this salt wash goodness. Don't breathe this in. When you get ready to when you get ready to put your powder additive in your paint, don't poof this in your face. So set your container to the side, move this out away from your face. Don't breathe that in. It's not good for you. It's not going to kill you if it's in a little bit of the air, but you don't want it right under your face. So move your container out of the way. And let's see, Paula, I have to tell you how much I'm enjoying my transfers. Yay! I am so glad. That's what it's all about, Paula. Play with the products, do the things, spend your time, stay inside in the air conditioning and out of the rain. It is, after all, monsoon season in South Carolina. But I am so glad you're having a great time. It was so wonderful for you to purchase from our live sale. I thank you for that. This is nice and thick. Paula, have you gotten salt wash yet to go with any of your projects? This is good stuff. Nice and thick. We'll use this first, and then we will liquefy and use it with our Miracle Sponge second. Let me grab a brush. Let me load it up. And let's start. I don't know that I want to sand the foam, so we'll move those out of the way. I want those painted, but I don't want to sand the foam. I'm afraid if I sand them, it'll just rip them apart. Alice, hey, I'm so glad you're back. I think I fixed the problem. We're gonna test it and see. All right, let's do our tin. Let's do our little tin first. So we do have the sunset base. Let me kick you over to a single view so that you can see the whole project. You can still see the stars under there. It's okay, watch this. Let's add some salt wash, give it some peaks. Give it a little bit of texture there. And we don't necessarily have to use the rustic clay all over because we're gonna use copper too. But I do want to cover up, and I don't need so much along that top edge because that top edge is where the lid goes on. I want the lid to fit, so I'm not gonna cover that whole area. Not the whole area, just some of it. So let's get some of this salt wash on here. Just bump it on there. Give it a little texture as you're going if you don't want to go back and do over, but you do want it to have a little bit of texture. That's what it's all about. You know, I always correlate it to the popcorn ceilings, because that's kind of what this reminds me of as we're going. Morning again, Alice. It is way afternoon, but I'll tell you, I did just finish my breakfast. Because I forgot, I got busy, and then when we got kicked off, I was like, I'm fixing this. We're not getting kicked off again, y'all. I have figured out how to move things around so that we don't lose any of our videos in case there was something you missed and you want to see it again. And we have enough storage space to do what we need to do on our lives. Now I'm going to do the lid. Let's heavy up on the lid, make it super cute. A little bit of salt wash action on that top space. Okay. I love some salt wash. Who loves salt wash too? Who loves that salt wash? Besides me. Now, right there's where I had my thumb previously. I'm just gonna kick some salt wash over the top of that. No one will know but you and me, and you're not gonna tell on me, are you? No. There we go. Nicely covered. Let's let this dry. Set it on top of there. Move it to the side, out of the way. Scooch over, there we go. And let's keep the salt wash off the equipment. Okay, this is the lid to this. We've got a nice orangey base. I don't necessarily want salt wash on this piece, so I'm gonna set it to the side. Now this is covered with salt wash with Sunset. So let's add some salt wash to this. I'm gonna thin it just a little bit. How do you thin salt wash and paint? Add a little bit of water. Stir it around just a little bit. I do want it nice and chunky thick, but I don't want it over the top thick. And now I've got a good load on that brush. Let's daub it around. I want a nice Halloween fall finish. And we're gonna use some leaves and some acorns on something, and I need to go back in the back room and grab some sunflower molds because I want some sunflowers on here too. If you cast your molds in resin and you get ready to do a project and your project has curvy surfaces, don't forget, you can use your heat gun to soften your resin mold and use it in the way you want, okay? I do recommend that you pick your resin molds up with a pair of pliers that have an insulated handle so you don't burn your fingers. Now I did a pretty good heavy coat on that, so I'm gonna let that sit and dry. I'm gonna leave that alone. Now, this one right here, we really liquefied the Sunset to go over this. So let's get to it. Let's go ahead and I'm gonna leave my brush in so I can pick this up. This is a continuous mister, but you have to actually get it going. It'll spritz, or you can pump it several times and it will keep misting. So if you want just a little bit of water, it'll mist, but be careful. If you don't want a lot of streams, don't mist repeatedly or you'll get a lot going on. And I want to thin this down pretty good. So I'm just gonna do that. I'm just gonna thin it down, and that's more like it. That's more like what we started with. All right, I do need to do the lid to the big jar, so I'm gonna daub some of this on. I always call it tamp because you're tapping and applying. But there we go. And then my thumb's in the way. I'll just get some on my thumb this time. And I'll let that dry a little because I just saturated this. Hey, Becky. I just saturated this, so this is gonna be a little more runny than I want it to be. So I'm gonna let it dry a little bit, and then I will make the peaks that I want over the top of it. This one, same way. I'm gonna go ahead and cover that orange because that orange is salt wash also. So I will get some peaks of orange under this rustic clay. You really wanna make sure you grab some of these. They're beautiful southwestern colors, but they are the perfect fall decor colors this year. All right, there's my hand. This was the liquefied version that we used. I'll take my hand back out and I'm going to take my brush out. We used the Miracle Sponge, and this is how we applied the Sunset to the jar. Miracle Sponge, salt wash with rustic clay over the top of your Sunset. Get these colors If you are a flipper or a maker, if you have festivals coming up, or if you just want to go ahead and take advantage of this season while you're in the house to get some of your fall decor ready, because you know what? It's going to be here and you're not going to be ready for it. Recycle some of the jars and containers that you have at the house. Instead of throwing them in the trash, recycle them and make something really fantastic out of them. So this is a nice full coat of rustic clay over the top of our sunset, and we're going to let that dry as well. And this one right here, this one I did more of a sea glass type finish. So in order to get to that again, I'm going to liquefy this a little bit more. And I'm going to use the same brush. I don't need to use a different one, because as I mix this with the brush, it'll take what product I have on the brush and it'll put it back in the container. I still want a little bit more thin. Remember, we're mimicking sea glass, but we're doing it with our fall colors. All of these different colors are available on twogirlstreasure.com. The salt wash as well. And if you're local, mark your order for pickup in person. If you're not so local or you want to save the gas money, do that too. And we offer flat rate shipping on our Rethunk Junk paint products. And I do, just in case you're wondering, refund the differences if there are any. All right, so mixed up nice and smooth and thin. And let's do a little more sea glass finish on this jar. A little more. I like it. I like it. Little peaks of orange coming through. Little peaks of rustic clay on the leg of my camera stand. It's okay. I'll fix it. So we'll get around that lip edge. Pull that down just like that all the way to the bottom. All the way to the bottom, and one and done. One and done. Now, we want to make sure this one's covered in sunset now that it's dry. And these two, we want to brush over. Remember the inspiration? It's this. We should probably utilize our Miracle Sponge for this. Now this has some green right here in the grooves, so we might want to use that. We've got green on this one. We don't have green on this one. This one's just plain old orange sunset. This one we already have the green laid in. So let's get our Miracle Sponge back out. Doesn't matter which one we use, because our salt wash mixture is liquefied now. I can add a little bit more water and it will be so much less. It'll be so diluted at this point. It's not going to be like salt wash. It's going to be more like just the paint. And I'm okay if it has a little bit of texture. And I'll show you why. I'm not going to sand this. I don't want to sand this foam because I'm afraid it'll come apart. Because after all, it's just a cheap Dollar Tree foam pumpkin. But in just a minute, it's going to look like, you know, at least $2 pumpkin, right? I don't want too much of a load on my sponge, so I'm going to wipe some of that back. Got a little bit much. Wipe a little bit of it back. Because without too much pressure, go ahead and tamp your color on just like this. See, we've got our greens are gonna stay right where we have them in the grooves. I'm gonna be covered with paint. Totally okay with that. It washes off, y'all. Little bit of soap and water and it washes right off. Same thing on my table. I'll use my prep and I'll clean my table. But now look. And look what a job that Miracle Sponge did. And I'll tell you, I'm gonna grab my, I can't stand for my table to be dirty. I love these tables. But I'm gonna grab my paper towel and set it down so I can Miracle Sponge the top. I love how that looks. I love how it got right in there and did the job I intended for it to do. I didn't want these crevices covered up. I wanted to make sure I tamped on a secondary color. Let's do this one because this is bright orange. Let's get this one. And I think it'll be just fine if we do this one first in the rustic clay. And then we can come back and tamp our green in the crevices. Don't want to put too much pressure because you don't want the rustic clay down in the grooves like I just did. Don't push on it. Just tap it. Just tap it on. It's one of the coolest paint utensils we have. I love all of my paint brushes. This is so much different than a paint brush. This gives me amazing abilities, and this is one of them. I can put paint on without covering paint over, or I can cover over, or I can salt wash. I can do spindles with this too, y'all. Yep, Becky, I really recommend that you have at least 2 of these sponges on hand at all times because you're gonna use them. You're gonna use one and then the other. They do wash, so you don't have to worry as long as you make sure you wash them off. You don't have to worry about not being able to reuse them, but you do wanna make sure that you wash them off. I'm going to liquefy my green paint again because it is just like having a watercolor palette in a cup. This is what happens when you do not use your paint up before you let it dry up. All right, let's take this. Let's just swoosh some green in those creases right there. It's okay if it's not perfectly aligned. We're gonna add more paint. It's okay if you get paint on your fingers. If you're using Rethunk Junk paint, a little bit of warm water, a little bit of soap, you'll wash it right off. It's okay. Those don't have to be perfect, and it's okay if they're strong right now because once they dry and we add more paint, they will take backstage to our finished color, which I believe is going to be, I was thinking gray mist, but I really feel like we need to do some, I don't know. I'm kind of thinking white, but not. Maybe we need to take a third orangey color. Maybe this is where we need to bring in our cactus rose. What do y'all think? This is where we need to bring in a white color, or this is where we need to bring in an orange. I love it. I love that. I think that's gonna make a beautiful pumpkin. And look at the 2 of them together. Look how dramatically different the finishes are gonna be. I love this. You know what? I'm gonna leave this alone. I know exactly what to do. Y'all do too. How about that copper? How about that copper? We didn't forget about it, did we? Almost, but not quite. I'm not gonna do a whole lot to this, except I probably ought to do some of the rustic clay on here. And here's why. Around the outer rim, I will probably utilize some jute twine. But on this inner piece, we probably need something there, don't we? We need to color that in. Color all of the page. Do you color just a part of the picture, or do you color every inch of the page? Well, I was a child of the fortune that I believed if I had a piece of paper to color, I colored it all. So when I paint it all. Maybe that's why I do it the way I do. I use all the surface. Use all the surface. Use the surface that makes you happy. This is what makes me happy. We might not be the same. I think that's the coolest thing about all of us, is that we're pretty much not. If we were all the same, our projects would all be the same, and we'd be boring people. You're not here because we're boring. You're here because we're different. And you like to be different, and I do too. Now, this is nice and thick. There are some areas of it that are almost dry, and there are some areas that are still a little bit damp. We don't want to mess this up. I'm going to grab another paintbrush. I've got them right here. And we're going to make sure we've got good peaks to work with. So tink that where it's still real damp. Just take your paintbrush, tink it so it's nice and textury. On your super wet spots, go ahead and tink it. Where it's dry, you're not going to really do anything. You're not going to move that. If it's already dry, you're not going to do any good. But give yourself some texture to work with, because this is where you're going to separate your colors. This is where it's going to make the difference in the finish. That right there, that's the beauty of salt wash. Now let's grab this jar and let's get some peaks on here too. We might knock down some chunks. We don't really want chunks to our finish. We want peaks. That's what we want to be able to knock down when we sand this, is our peaks. We've got a lot of dry on here too already, and that's fantastic, because that's just going to give us a quicker finish time. There we go. Chunk that down just a little bit. Cover up any bare spots on the glass. Tink-a-tink. I get carried away and I start pounding on the glass. I love it though. This is gonna look so good when we finish. See where I just tinked it? Tink it down, tink it down. This is not gonna require as much tinking because it's thin. This is nice and thin, but I'm gonna tink it anyway because we've got a little bit of drying. Most of this is dry. I can see the wet spots right here. Can you see it in the highlight? Right there, we've got a chunk. So we want to tamp that down. Just beat on the glass with your paintbrush. Just tink it down so that it's a little less peaky on this, because this was thinned down, remember? Love that. All right. Next paintbrush, good times. Here's what we're gonna do. All right, I've got salt wash all over my fingers. It's like peeling glue off. Got a little bit of salt wash on this. I want this one just plain sunset. I love it in plain sunset, and we will probably put a pretty little sunflower on here and make a nice little lighted ornament. So I want to leave this be. I don't necessarily want salt wash on the entirety of it, but you know, it should have some contrast on here because we're gonna have sunflower. So if we're gonna put the sunflower here, this is gonna be our bottom. Let's tamp in a little bit of green. And I'll tell you what we'll do with this. Let it get on there, green it up all the way around the edge where the lid goes. Green it up. And come in a little bit. It's not going to hurt anything. All right, now our lid. Let's go ahead and green our lid. Now the lid's already salt washed, remember? Remember from this morning before we got kicked off again? All right, so there we go with our, I believe this is, it's not eucalyptus. I almost want to say this is blue spruce. I think it is. It's a beautiful color. So let's do this. Oh yeah, when we sand this back, there we go. When we sand that back, it's gonna pull the eucalyptus off the ridges, and that's where we're gonna have our sunset. Loving that. Absolutely loving that. All right, this, we're just gonna leave this alone. It's still wet. You see the shiny spots? Let's leave that be. And our pumpkins are drying. Our jars are next. I think I want to put some sunflowers on this too. Oh, we're a little damp. I think we can add some green to it. We'll tamp it on with a brush. I'd really rather do this with my Miracle Sponge, but they're both covered in my rustic clay and my orange, so we're just gonna wing through it here. Get some green toward my bottom, a little bit around the bottom edges. I'm not gonna move too far up the jar with it on this one because this is a short jar and I want that sunflower field at the bottom edge, okay? Let that dry. Let that dry. And grab your tall container. Let's get some green on here. Really want to use my sponge. I do. So tell you what, I'm going to. I can't stand it, I've got to. It's okay if it's got the orange on it. We're doing this. I'm gonna watercolor some of this on. I just have to have the Miracle Sponge to do this. I think it'll be so cool. I love the way it texturizes. And when you texture over texture, this is what you get. You get that vibe. You get that real color over color over color vibe, and you have to have it. I have to have it. And I have to color the entire piece. And look what we're getting right here. Now we're getting the pattern that's on the glass. Oh, look at it come through. I'm in love with this container. I'm in love with the way this is finishing. And this is what you get when you save your recycling and find something special to do with it. Alice, this looks like something that you'd be super proud to own in Arizona. Now, I would normally use a peacock feather blue, but I really liked the green. I don't use the green enough. I use the peacock feather a lot, but I love the way this moves together. This is Sunset. This is Rustic Clay, both in salt wash. And this eucalyptus, this is not salt washed. So this is gonna be your cover coat. And once this cover coat dries, you'll sand it back to reveal the colors underneath. Now, this salsa jar didn't look like this a few hours ago, did it? But look at it now. I'm gonna tamp some onto the neck. I've got to do it sideways to make it work. But I'm gonna cover over that pattern that we could see, because once I sand that back, That's going to show that diamond pattern all the way around. It'll show all my colors. And in order to do this well, because this is a glass jar, this needs to dry really well. Let it. The colors are amazing. Can you imagine what this is going to look like with copper over it? Well, let's not imagine it. Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm still going to use this same sponge. I don't see any need to change. Tell you what, I can leave the sponge. I have these nice softy brushes. They're actually makeup brushes, don't tell anyone. But they're soft and they mop paint. So when you get ready to daub your copper on, this will work too. I believe it will. Let's try it and see. Let's try this and see. Because we're going to do both of these jars with some copper. And even though it's not completely dry, it'll give us a little bit of a blend, and that's all right too. Because I think these colors blended together will be an amazing natural culmination. So I've got the copper just on the tips of my brush, probably still too much, but let's look at it and see what it does. Are you ready? Just a gentle tamping into the other colors. Don't forget, this is salt wash, so we're gonna let this dry really well, and then we're gonna sand it back. Because we're on glass, we're gonna give it extra dry time. So if you cover an entire area with your copper, don't worry. Go ahead and cover it. We're not trying to dry brush this on because we're gonna sand this back and reveal our rustic clay and our sunset. So I'm gonna tamp that around a little bit more. Oh, I love the copper. Can you see it? Oh, look at that shine. Look at that shimmer. Look at that. We've got some bling. We've got some bling. Yeah, Alice, I hate to throw good containers away. There's always something you can do with it. And if you save your really good containers, your good glass containers, and decorate them, you haven't lost a thing. And you actually will have gained a product that you didn't have to spend a ton of money on. And, you know, my gasoline's costing me a good little chunk of my money right now. So my recycling efforts, well, they are finally paying off. I don't know if my husband agrees, but it's okay. I regularly remove the recycling from the way. I don't know if you saw behind me today, but I have a couple of suitcases full of recycling. We can make all kinds of projects. Your biggest investment in doing something like this is going to be your time. And the dry time is the biggest investment because you got to be patient and let that dry. Ooh, we need some right there too. You turn my hand. I can't let that sit empty. More is more is more, Becky. More is more. Put some more on there. Get that nice and shimmery. Let's let this dry because that's going to be an amazing piece to work with. I'm going to move the other jar out of the way. Let's move the pumpkins back in. Oh yeah, our pumpkins have to shimmer and shine too. Our pumpkins deserve to shimmer and shine. And I tell you what, here's where we need our miracle sponge for this, because we're not going to get the same effect on that pumpkin unless we tamp it the same way with the miracle sponge. So let's go again, right around the tops, over those peaked edges. Just tamp it on, daub it. You don't have to smash it. Don't smash it. Just get a good covering. A little bit here, a little bit there. I probably just put too much on it. It's okay. I love it. I love the way it looks. Oh, I didn't even have to do the foil thing, and look at my shiny pumpkin. This is gonna look amazing with some glaze over it, y'all. Amazing with glaze. I've got to get my brush because I've got a little bit too much on this pumpkin. But let's do it again. Let's daub it with the Miracle sponge because we want that textured finish without the salt wash. We want the textured finish over. I don't know where to grab it because it's still damp. I'm gonna grab it right there. We want that textured finish without the textured additive. I want that shimmer without having to do a foil. And I know foils are fun, foils are cool. Foils take some time. And when I'm doing smalls, when I'm not doing furniture, I want these things done. One and done. I want them out the way so I can move back into my furniture realm. And again, I think this is going to look amazing with some glaze on it. And I'm going to set it down. I'm going to take my copper brush and I'm going to do the top. There we go. So that it is a more cohesive look. And no matter which way I go right now, I'm going to have this all over my hands. This is going to dry and it will wash off. So it's not a big deal. You think it looks so Southwest? I think it looks amazing. And I am just super excited about the way that looks. And the cool thing about salt wash is that I'm going to put this copper over the top of this rustic clay and this sunset. And when this copper dries and we sand this back, that's what we're going to have on there. Now, I didn't do any of the green on here, but you know what? I can go back and add to it. The beauty of using the water-based resin additive Rethunk Junk paint is that I can always add to my project. I don't have to strip it and start over. There's no waxing here, y'all. So I can always go back and add to. And I love that feature of my paint line because it makes my life so much easier. I want more copper, so I'm gonna dip again. And I'm gonna get it on my Miracle sponge so that I have, I'll put some on the lid with the brush, and I'm gonna tamp it with my Miracle sponge because I love the textury goodness I'm gonna get from this. And I can still take my brush and my green, and I can put some green in here with this wet, but I'm probably gonna wait until after I sand this back. We're gonna let this dry. I'm gonna sand it back. Now here's the thing. We have this jar that we have watered down salt wash in 2 different colors on. It's still wet, so we can't do anything with it right now. But when we do, this is gonna be the coolest ball jar you've ever seen. All right, 2 pumpkins, 2 jars, 3 jars, a tin, and an ornament. And now we're where we should have been with 30 minutes left in our program this morning. I think I'm caught up. So what we'll do now is wait for it to dry. I will photograph what I'm working on so that you can see every smack bit of it. I will spend some time this evening doing a quick little video. It's just like glue. I swear to y'all, it is. It just scoops off your hands. Look at that. The cleanup with salt wash is soap and water as well. So we have the perfect marriage of paint and texturizing product right here at Two Girls Treasure. We have your Rethunk Junk water-based paint products, 45 different colors. And you know, Alice, you're right. These inspired by nature colors are so desert Southwest. And they're so inspiring. And we have colors I haven't even touched on for fall decor. But I think I know what my next move is going to be. So I'm going to find a piece of furniture and I am going to get to getting on it, because I now have a new inspiration for a piece of furniture from doing these fall smalls. Don't forget, Thursday evening, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we will host our next Bring It To You live sale. We are not going to put a tent up in monsoon season in South Carolina. No, no, no. We're going to be right here live hosting our warehouse sale. Now, this store's 8,600 square feet. Look behind me and on the other side of me, and it is slap full of furniture. Everything from headboards and footboards, anything you could imagine that needs to go in your bedroom, your nightstands, your dressers, your chests of drawers, anything you need to go in your den, your side tables, your pie crust tables, your tiered tables, anything you can imagine to go in your dining room, your tables, your chairs, your buffets. We have it all. Your china hutches, your china cabinets, your little cupboards. And we're going to spend some time in this warehouse, and we're going to put this stuff on sale. Clearly, all of it will not go on sale on Thursday, but don't worry. I'll go live until we sell it out. You make sure you start with us Thursday evening, 6 p.m. We'll see you right here at Two Girls Treasure, live on Facebook and on YouTube. I'm Diane. Thank you so much for coming back to join me for Coffee and Create lunchtime. I can't wait to finish these projects and show you how amazing they're going to be.